Hello? Yeah. See, so this is the second edition of RISE. RISE is an event that is intended to showcase institutes' research, innovation, and entrepreneurship activities. Primarily, we are, in the institute, we are trying to focus on social issues as our primary mechanism through which we wanted to showcase all our work. So the intent as part of the second edition is how startups that are there on campus and students and faculty members working on such social issues, how they can collaborate with more organizations, not-for-profits organizations, corporates, and see ways by which their work can be taken to the market. That's our primary intent for this event. So we are doing two parallel events. One is a research colloquium where students are presenting their papers and the work that they have been doing over the years, and the innovation track where the focus is on the startups and innovative work that the students are also doing. So that's the agenda. It's a 3-day kind of event. The first day focuses on more the why behind many of the startups and the ventures. What is the why behind the work that they are doing? The second day focuses on the technology work that the startups are doing, so that they can potentially target students, interns, and employees who can join the companies. The third day is more focused on the business. So we have corporates that have agreed to come and listen to the startups, and hopefully there will be some synergy between the corporates, open innovation work, and the work that's happening at the startup side. So that's the overall 3-day agenda. Today we kick off with the focus on resilience in the morning, and then post that on health, and later in the day on security. So that's the 3 tracks that we are focusing on. So with this, I will hand over to the students so that they can introduce the speakers for the session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Today's moderator is Professor Amit Prakash. Professor Amit Prakash is an associate professor at IIIT Bangalore. He has an undergraduate degree in civil engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, and a doctoral degree in information systems from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. He is also the convener for Center for IT and Public Policy at IIIT-B. He is also the core team member of eHealth Research Center. Professor Amit Prakash has extensively worked on advisory assignments related to public policy and e-governance over his more than 15 years of association with organizations like PricewaterhouseCoopers and Center for Development of Advanced Computing. Welcome to RISE 2018, sir. The keynote will be given by Mr. Prakash. Mr. V.S. Prakash is currently the advisor of IIIT Bangalore. He was a former registrar for IIIT Bangalore. He was a special director for the Karnataka State Natural Disaster Monitoring Center. He received his master's degree from University of Twente. Welcome to RISE 2018, sir. I request you to please.
Post that we will introduce the for the name check, I can connect the Bluetooth. You can use this.
No.
What will I require the USB to? No, what do you have? HDMI or? This was not wrong. You need a HDMI? Yeah. And you No, this is yes. Good morning. Maybe I think I've got about 10-14 minutes. I won't take much time. I'm supposed to talk for 10 minutes and I'll share a couple of stories and end my talk. And, because, I think I read in the program how good our cities are resilient, how best it can be made more resilient, who said our cities are not resilient? It is already resilient, Look at the positive side. Maybe we feel, you look at it, there was a flood and well, flood is gone and now they are back to normal. HSR layout 6 sector, there was a flood, every house, it was inundated, almost 6 in many of the streets, including my own brother, he stays in HSR layout 6 sector. All the IAS officers' basements, all the cars were floating in the water. And well, a couple of days and water was pumped out and IAS officers, they were happy going to their office and functioning, things like that. My own brother is a professor in Christ University. He is a professor in finance and management. He is also very happy. Not that, still there. So, accidents do happen every day. Accident is part of disaster. I think I was talking to Professor Amit Prakash ji, and now their building collapsed yesterday. Well, buildings have collapsed and well, it is a disaster for the local people, the group of people who are staying there. It is a disaster, certainly, but I have come here, I am associated with you. We are conducting the workshop and exchanging the ideas, things like that. It is resilient. So in a big way, cities are resilient. So certainly, well, if you look at these things, there are something more to be done. What exactly these are the issues and how to really address these issues. And I will, as I come prepared to share some of the, ideas. So maybe here, for some of you may think that, well, who is this person standing in front of me? And so basically, for 16 years, I was, playing with disasters. I was just, yes. So in 1998, from Government of India, I came to.
Recording the camera, so you can stand over here. Sorry for that, and this is the pointer. You can next.
Yeah, good. Thank you. So, 98, I came from Government of India to Karnataka government as a director. It was called drought monitoring at that time. Then activities were diversified. It became Karnataka State Natural Disaster Monitoring Center. And well, without the real-time data, near real-time data, management of disasters, where the preparedness and early warning is a very, very important component. So the preparedness and early warning are heavily dependent on science and technology. We took some initiative and well, the hardware, software component, well, there was no models available around the country just to bring and replicate it. We had the great opportunity of developing the prototype sensors in those days without the support of the government. So it was looking back, and the NGO Samuha, they are working in Raichur, Koppala and Bangalore for the last 30 years. They have been active. And another, Mr. Raghavan, was in Infosys. He had quit Infosys, he had come out. So three of us made a group sitting in somebody's house, chit-chatting and discussing about. I had used these sensors when I was working in Spain, Paris, and Netherlands. So the concept was there and we could able to succeed in designing the sensor prototype. And then putting it in the, some of the districts, getting the data on the mobile and going to the government and demonstrating them, showcasing them. Government was not willing Sir, well, it may work for 2-3 days. You know, and what is the guarantee that it will work for 6 months or 1 year? Because their argument was, if you fix a tap in a village, in 3 days the tap is broken. If they fix a street light, within few days, few weeks, the street light is broken. What is the guarantee your rain gauge is not broken? If you are going to install in a village, no sir, it will work, certainly it will work, no. And somehow, you know, save some money in one project, put it in this, installing the sensor, somehow it could be able to manage and enabled the messages on the mobile of the ministers, chief secretary. So they saw at 9 o'clock, the message comes, how much it has rained, where it has rained, and what is the temperature, wind speed, wind direction, alerts also. If the wind speed increases more than 3 meters per second, alert will come on their mobile. If the rainfall intensity is more than 50 millimeter per hour, alert is to go to all the Tahsildar, DC, secretary, minister. So they went on looking at 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. So then they developed the confidence this works. Then there was no looking back. Then the other way around, Prakash, we are going to give you money. Can you finish it in 1 month? 600 sensors. Can you install, make it operational in 1 month time? Yes sir, no problem. So we completed the work. Then as usual, money was not forthcoming, running around the tables, getting the money released. Anyway, now we got 6,000 sensors in Karnataka. 6,000 sensors, rainfall monitoring sensors, and nearly about 1,000 weather monitoring sensors, collecting the data near real time I should say. And not only data collection, the processing, report generation, alert recognition, everything is automated. Probably now with that, the information, the farmers are also brought into the fold. The information will go to the farmers. Farmers are not only comfortable with what has happened, they want to know what is going to happen in the next 3 days, 5 days, 1 week, 2 weeks. So we started generating the forecast, weather forecast, 12 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours, 48 hours, 60 hours, 72 hours, 5 days, 10 days. So we started the help desk, 30 line, we called it as Varuna Mitra, and we started with few hundred farmers, thousands. Now, a few 2-3 months back, the agriculture minister had a meeting in Vikas Soda. The DG IMD had come from Delhi. I was also invited. I was sitting in a corner. There was a great pride. Karnataka government was taking great pride in saying that 30 lakh farmers have subscribed to the help desk, Varuna Mitra. So, the Varuna Mitra help desk is not a toll free. The farmer has to spend currency from his mobile. It may cost about 50 paise or 1 rupee. But farmers are getting a benefit of 2,000 rupees and more by making one call. Example, a farmer in Raichur area, he calls the help desk. He would like to know what is the possibility of rain in the next 3 days, 5 days, 3 to 5 days. So the farmer is again questioned back, anyway, you are in the canal command. You are going to get a lot of water from Almaty, Narayanpura Dam. Why are you worried about rain? No, if it is going to rain, I will stop irrigating my land with canal. Why? If I irrigate my land with the canal water, over and above it rains in 3 days, 3 to 5 days, it is a very ideal condition for pests and insects. So, if I have to use insecticide and pesticide, so it is expenditure of about 2,000 to 3,000 rupees per acre. Then labor. So, even if I spend that money, insecticide, pesticide, my productivity will not be as it will be, in case, I don't apply irrigation water, it rains, perfectly alright. So productivity is good, I save money, insecticide, pesticide need not be sprayed. So it took the advice, it did rain, and so then ISEC, Institute for Socio-Economic Change, so the government wanted them to really go around, meet the farmers, evaluate how the program is running. They come with the report is still available in the public domain. The report said 85% of the farmers are happy with advisories. It is running very silently, but nevertheless the urban areas are also in the country. Urban areas, we know we used to get calls. So especially the inundated areas, where it's going to rain, where it is going to rain, things like that. But urban area challenges for something different. BBMP, we had interaction with BBMP. So if it rains in Mahalakshmi layout, the Gali Anjaneya temple gets inundated. So how much rain? It rains in Mahalakshmi layout, Basveshwar Nagara, then converting the rainfall into runoff, velocity, and what could be inundation, things like that. So we were in the process of developing a model for that. So meanwhile, I came out of KSNM, still KSNM is working on that, urban issues. And we, a lot of data is there in Karnataka, and there is a big scope for creating, developing sensors for many other issues. Another big issue right now, you must have all read in the newspaper. So almost 1400 MLD water, sewage water, the government intend to put STP, treat it, and pump it to Kolar and Chikballapur. Fill up the tanks in Kolar and Chikballapur. Kolar and Chikballapur farmers, they say, we don't want any sewage water. Anyway, we don't have water. Our borewells, we are drilling 2000 feet. Water table is already depleting. Anyway, we are going to die in another 10-20 years. Don't pump the sewage water and make us to die in much earlier than that, 5 years. So that issue was taken up, and I took initiative on my own side, and we had a small platform where the retired IAS officer, Mr. Vishwanathan, who was the founder chairman of IIITB, N. Vishwanathan, and Swaminath was the secretary Forestry College Environment, Tangaraj, and many others. We came together and we looked into the issue. We went to the BWSSB. Have you analyzed any sewage water? They said no. So, no, we are sure that there is no reason for a concern or worry. Now, why do you say that there is no reason for concern? So, T.V. Ramchandra from Institute of Science, he has made some analysis. He says that there are a lot of heavy metals in the effluent and sewage. So, he says these heavy metals, once it is pumped to the tanks of Kolar and Chikballapur, so all the groundwater is going to be polluted. Heavy metals, lead, zinc, and hexavalent chromium, and all these heavy metals, very, very. So the issue is then I went to BWSSB. What do you say about Professor Ramachandra report? Yes, Professor Ramachandra has collected samples from the tank bed. He has not collected sample in the sewage, flowing sewage in the Rajkalways. So tank bed, it is accumulated over the last 20-30 years. Certainly there will be some heavy metal. That should not be really. What we are doing is we are pumping the Rajkalway sewage water, not from the tank bed. So Ramachandra report should not be taken so seriously. But farmers in Chikballapur, Kolara, they are fighting against this problem. There are a lot of protests. They say we don't want this water. Don't pump the sewage water into our tanks. So what we are planning, we are trying to have a discussion with the NEERI, CERI also. They develop some sensors, put up the sensors in and across the Bangalore city, where the Rajkalways are there. So real-time gone monitoring. If there is industry which releases their effluent, they don't release 24/7. They collect it about 1 lakh, 2 lakh effluent. They collect in a time. Maybe in midnight, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, they release it in one go. So if it is a velocity of about 1.5 to 3 meters per second, maybe in about 5 to 6 hours, the entire it's got the flume passes through Rajkalway and it is gone. So if you are prepared to collect the sample during that time, you will be able to really measure it, monitor it, things like that. Otherwise, as a government servant, if I go at 8:30 and collect the sample, come back analyze, I may completely miss it. So all industries, they release their effluent into Rajkalways, which they are not supposed to do. So then what is it? Then we need to measure 24/7 the quality of the water in and around Bangalore, all the Rajkalways. There is a big scope for developing sensors, putting it, gathering information in real time. And STPs, which are going to be planned, which are going to be installed in and around Bangalore, they cannot be, just like, a regular, all phosphor, nitrate, things like that. they should be able to handle heavy metals also if there is a flux of heavy metals coming to the STP. So so we had been to Bombay, I had been to Chennai, Kalpakam. We had a discussion with water chemist Raving, Vel Murugan, Dr. Vel Murugan and this. So even their technology is still, they don't have a technology to handle heavy metals. So there is a scope for monitoring, and also the scope for developing technologies to handle the sewage and effluent in urban context. So if it is demonstrated, probably many urban areas are looking forward to this technology. Water is becoming scarce. Recycling, what everybody is talking about, how really it can be treated, recycled, is one issue which is really a lot of scope, lot of potential is there. Developing hardware, software, data analysis, things like a lot of minds need to come together, work on that. So then another issue is in water. Yes. So as far as urban cities are concerned, so there are road accidents, rail accidents, and the building collapses, the epidemics, the water scarcity, and the seismicity as a whole. The building kills people, not the earthquake. In some of the areas, urban areas, not only Bangalore. If you take the entire Indian city, India as a whole, there are cities, which are very vulnerable to earthquakes. So a lot of scope is there to, developing sensors, installing them, connecting them, and customize information at the individual level. So in agriculture, probably in the rural area, land parcel level information is required. So here in the urban area, a lot of scope is there. Probably a lot of money is also there. So there's a smart city, safe city. I was discussing with Professor Jagdish. Next will be happy city. So a lot of scope is there. Sensors, money, data collection, analysis, making people happy. You'll get money, you'll be also happy. Thank you.
Do we take some questions from Mr. Prakash before we move on to the can have questions first?
I'll call you back. Sorry, I can't keep my mobile. No, because today's Kaveri verdict has come. So many people are calling. I'm the expert witness for Karnataka. So I can't keep my mobile. I'm asking them to call you. Today verdict has come out. So many people calling.
Yeah, Mr. Prakash represents Karnataka in Supreme Court, and that verdict has come out. So the kind of political and technical and all those juggling he is currently doing, legal, all of that stuff, and apparently the kind of work is done in the court will be out in papers tomorrow, but even today, and it actually points to some favorable results from his perspective. I'm sure there are other issues, larger issues of equity there and various other, but we'll not look at that, but maybe celebrate his, to a certain extent, the kind of work he has put together in making a good consolidated legal, political, technical case for farmers in Karnataka. We should probably applaud him for that, and then we'll take a few questions. Yeah.
No. No.
A few questions on disaster.
I'll be happy if there are no questions. But
you mentioned that KSN and TMC collect a lot of sensor level data, and there are also reports that are posted on the website of Government of Karnataka. How do we gain access to the raw data for possible analysis? What are the mechanisms by which, because you also mentioned that software, hardware, and apart from the tenders also, are there any ways by which we can get access and contribute as an institute?
Certainly. For the research and academic institutions, KSNDMC, you have to make an MOU with them, and the data can be made available. And some of the academic institutions already made an MOU with KSNDMC. Maybe the roles and that it will be defined, and it will be made free of cost for academic institutions. For example, when I was heading the center, IMD was charging money. If I want data from IMD. IMD is going to charge me. So, but they expected me to give them free of data free of cost. They said, no, for you we will charge you. Because you are collecting money from me, I will charge you. So, for the insurance sector, they were charging them. For academic and research institutions is available free of cost. You need to make a, and also portal is there, www.ksndmc.org. If one is smart, you can go to the archive. You can, when I say one is smart, you should be safe also. I can't say, yeah.
Now there is a Kisan conference across India. Would the farmers in Karnataka can get probably your data through Kisan, maybe Kisan, you can trust.
Yeah, Kisan call center is there. No, and now is the Udan has come up. Udan. If you have a mobile smartphone, have you seen the Udan? UDAN. You just give it away. Very nice app. It gives information about weather. It gives information about the price, market price of the producers, and whatever farmers require. All the information. Yeah. You can download the Udan. And SkyMet, they are giving location-specific forecast. So now, slowly, a lot of information are available around, but some of them are very synoptic in nature, and some of them are really, a micro scale data. So, well, like you go to a big store, so if you find many brands, you got the choice. So like that, probably it's good sign that there are 4, 5, 6 products, and probably something what works good for you, you can use it for the day, maybe. So you are correct. There are, apart from that, as a SkyMet is there, Udan is there. So in the days to come, I said land parcel level information. That's what the farmer requires. Yes, sir.
Sir, when it starts to happen, a lot of various agencies come together. Police, municipal agencies. So the coordination effect among these agencies has been improving in our country, or how is it? I mean, compared to, for example, your other countries.
No, certainly, I can only say that there is improvement. Certainly, there is an improvement. What it was about a decade back and what it is now, certainly there is an improvement. There is a lot of improvement in forecasting also, the way you can handle cyclones. So, well, there's a significant improvement, but the first responder is the community itself. So there, well, lot more things needs to be done. Lot more things needs to be
Thank you, Mr. Prakash, for that useful, say, introduction to disasters, to calamities. And coming from your experience, I am sure this is going to set a good context for the discussions in this session. I have no expertise in disasters or resilience, and I think it's a test of my maybe resilience that Ramesh got me in, maybe as a last moment replacement. But let me come to something like, or what Mr. Prakash was also alluding to. There are natural calamities, or there are calamities, and there are disasters. And the relationship between a calamity and a disaster will depend on a lot of things. So whether an earthquake will turn into a disaster will depend. An earthquake may happen, and whether it will turn into a disaster will depend on whether the buildings were constructed in a particular way. Whether a flooding will lead to, the entire loss of fertility in soil will depend on how the soil nutrients have been maintained. Whether, city populations will experience a disaster-like situation because of a particular epidemic outbreak will depend on how resilient or how well done the public health infrastructure of the city is. So there's a lot of social construction of disasters, and I think that that's important, and that's also what makes this topic interesting for me, because I look at technology as much a socially constructed say artifact as it is defined by certain pre-built, inbuilt say technical trajectories. So having said that, we have we have better people to talk about resilience and how cities and we as say social groups can bounce back from disaster-like situations or disasters. May I invite Shruti Krishnan. Ms. Shruti Krishnan is a researcher at Fields of View. She has pursued education at Asian College of Journalism, and she was a reporter at The Hindu. She was an IT analyst at TCS, and she is also a freelance writer and researcher. Shruti would be talking on games and policy making. Our next panelist is Mr. Raju, who is a co-founder of Verisim Technologies. Mr. Raju, may I invite you here? Mr. Raju Sagi is currently working as Vice President of Verisim Technologies. He has a master's degree in mechanical engineering from IIT Kharagpur and a second master's in aerospace from Carleton University, Canada. He has more than 30 years of professional experience in engineering and information technology. Mr. Raju would be talking about drones and urban emergency services. Our third panelist is Mr. Nitesh Kadyan, who is co-founder of Gravaiki Labs. Nitesh has founded Gravaiki Labs, and his organization has developed Carlink. It's a retrofit technology which captures carbon emissions from vehicles or chimneys before it enters our atmosphere, and they've found an ingenious way to convert pollution into ink. So I think he is founder of Easy 3D Labs with a focus on making a multi-material 3D printer. They have designed a 3D printer to print with plastic, fabric, clay, chocolate, and halwa. Okay. He was a research assistant at IIITB, where he built a model for autonomous wheelchair. Thanks, Nitesh, for coming. Our fourth and final panelist is Mr. Gopi, who is co-founder of IoTrax. Mr. Gopi will be talking on circular economy, zero waste. He has received his Master's of Business Administration from Cyprus International Institute of Management. He is a co-founder and CEO of IoTrax. He has also helped in the business development of RadioStudio.io. He was a business analyst at Merck, vehicle systems engineer at General Motors, and designer at EASI. Thank you so much for coming. What we'll do is we'll probably have about 8 minutes for the introductory remarks, so that we cover it in about 30-35 minutes, and then we'll take questions. In case you don't like there's something that you want clarification about, I hope if it is fine with the speakers, you can have one question at most while the presentation is going on. So let's start with you, Shruti. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us. IIITB was where Fields of View, we are a not-for-profit research organization, and this was the first home. And 3 years ago, we moved out, and I still remember Professor Sadagopan telling us that we are glad, and you've grown wings, so now it's time for you to build your own nest. So we are here at JP Nagar, so if any of you would like to visit, please do. The topic of resilience is it's broad, right? It's one of those grand words. What is resilience? So I mean, I'm someone conversant to technology as well as I'm very interested in storytelling. So I'll start with 3 stories. First story, a professor of mine had gone to Japan, and they had visited a town, right? And they were walking on the streets there. And on the footpath, they noticed these really interesting carvings. So they thought that this is something very interesting in that footpath of that town in Japan, and he asked the guide as to what are those carvings about. And the guide said that this is Braille, right? It's instructions in Braille for people who are, visually impaired to find their way through the city. And the professor was like, is it such a big problem that you have, footpaths with these sort of carvings? And the guy said, no, I think maximum there may be like 2 people in this town. But the town has thought about that, right? You paid attention to that little detail which makes the city more livable. So, as policymakers, so our focus at Fields of View is we work with the government, academia and civil society to improve policy making. We make tools for policy making. So one of the questions is, as a policymaker, what are your concerns, right? If you want your city to be better, if you want your city to be resilient, what do you need? Right? So a colleague of mine last year were in Sri Lanka, and we are conducting this workshop for the equivalent of IAS officers there. They have like 15 to 20 years of experience. And we took them through this process of how they could think about these really difficult social problems. I mean, if you say design tools for resilience, you could do a lot of things, right? You have a limited budget, you have a limited timeline. So within that, what do you do? So the workshop guides you through this difficult process and lets you think a bit about what are the requirements to build tools. At the end of it, the workshop was done, everybody is tired, it's a day-long affair. And people are filling feedback forms when one gentleman got up and said, I want to say something. Now the organizers were a little taken aback. I mean, this is not on the agenda. What do you do now? Do you let them speak or not? So they said, okay, let him. So he stood up and he addressed his colleagues and he said that this has been fascinating. I mean, for a long time, I have not had a session where I learned so much, which was stunning for us because, I mean, we are 6 years old. I think this February 10th we turn 6. So to see the validation of the kind of work that we are doing, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, was quite amazing for us. So what are these tools, right? So what are these tools that we kept speaking to about policymakers? These are, at the moment, games and simulations. So games and simulations in policy, what does that even mean, right? So for us, games are a way for you to play with the real world, right? Now, as a policymaker, if you have to think about to introduce a new policy, one of the usual methods is you do a pilot program. Now, these are very expensive to do, and they are a lot of cost intensive, takes time. So rather what we do is say we build you a simulation. This is like an exploratory simulation. It lets you explore. Most simulations, a lot of simulations are predictive. You put in something into the model, it tells you what's going to happen. There is a different class of simulation that lets you explore a model, right? So imagine you take data, you layer in all sorts of data. You can also layer in preferences of people, right? So right now, technology and computational power allows you to do that. You can mix tangible and intangible data. And then you provide like a visual interface for the policymaker. So now, for example, think of a disaster, right? So, I take buses and I go through Bangalore using buses, and one day I got into this bus from Electronic City. I wanted to go to Malaysia and it was empty. So I was thrilled. Oh, there's an empty bus to go to Malaysia, and I quickly got into it. It was supposed to go to Shivaji Nagar. I was supposed to take another bus. Before Shivaji Nagar, he stopped and said, that's all, it ends here. I said, what's happening here? So he said, there's St. Mary's Street. So all bus routes are closed. So now, what happens to traffic during even an event? Forget disaster, right? Even during a festival, how do you manage traffic? So in disasters, the problem gets compounded because your reaction time has to be that fast. I think someone here mentioned about interagency coordination during disasters. I think there's something called as a golden window, a very short period of time by which you need to respond, otherwise the disaster gets worse. Right? So for this problem, games and simulations can help. So I'll give you an example. Right? Now, take disaster. So for starters, if you want to think about interagency communication, think about a game where played by policymakers where they test communication protocols. As someone said, during a disaster, say hospitals, municipal administration, traffic police, all of them have to coordinate with each other. Usually there is not much need to talk to each other, right? Every department functions on its own. But during a disaster, what information do you need to give becomes really crucial. If I just tell you, oh, there is an accident, there, send ambulances, What kind of an accident is it? Do I need to send 1 ambulance or 5? How many first responders do I need to send? All these questions become very, very critical. So a game, we have a game called PyMap. It lets you test as well as develop communication protocols during the time of a disaster. Now what we can do is we can take these protocols and also test it out in our simulations. Right? So we have a simulation which we have built. I'll tell you about 2 projects. One project is where we can layer in data related to, say, maps, related to how people will behave during disasters, and let policymakers explore different scenarios. What kind of protocols are useful? What may have unintended consequences? These things, at least to some level, you can explore during these simulations and figure out what you want to do. Now, another project we are doing, I mean, everybody knows about the Chennai floods, right? Right now, Chennai doesn't want water from anywhere, right? They're so scared of water at the moment. So, there are different departments that manage water, right? Because any department that relates to, say, waste, land use, and water is concerned with water. So, now how do these departments end up talking to each other? So, what we are trying to build is a sort of a simulation to be used by the Tamil Nadu State Land Use Board, which they can use for planning. Right? Now, what kind of, say, for example, if a new project is going to come up, which is, say, related to desilting of lakes, which is important to prevent flooding. Now, what has to happen before the desilting? What has to happen afterwards? Now, somebody goes and desilts, but then somebody again comes and digs it up for something else. You have a problem at hand. 2 minutes more? Okay, I think more or less, so if you think about games and simulations for policy making, I would urge you to think about a model of the real world you can play with. You can experiment with, you can even fail, because it's a safe space, it's an immersive space that lets you understand the consequences of your action.
Policymakers actually, they understand value of games and they actually take up these games seriously, or
Yes.
you have to do a lot of convincing.
I mean, so when everybody asks us this question, we say we have always been very pleasantly surprised that the doors have opened, and people are extremely curious and eager to explore these tools too. So, for example, the project I told you is with the Tamil Nadu State Land Use Board. They are interested in building a simulation to test future scenarios, right? So we are working with BMTC on a project. So definitely, I think the government is far more open to exploring and experimenting, because these are real problems. So if something can help them, I think they're very keen to know what that is.
Yeah. So it's really very, very interesting. But again, you have to be reliable data.
Yes. Absolutely, and I think in the Indian context, that is definitely a challenge.
Do you think that there is a need for reliable data?
Absolutely. No, I mean, any research project, so whenever a new intern or researcher comes in, we ask them to go hunt for data. Because as technologists, we think, oh, we have the technology, we can solve the problem, but how reliable is the data? How do you validate it, right? What kind of proxies do you use? These are very real questions. And
lack of data is one issue.
a huge issue. But, I mean, to start.
I have a presentation. Already kept on the, just kept it, yeah, on the screen. TL. Yeah. Yes.
We are a not-for-profit research group, so we are registered as a society.
Yeah.
Fields of view, otherwise Karnataka ROC will not approve, and they have fields of view.
They have approved, we are a registered society, so.
Because they need a system of technology.
No, we are not a company, we are not a division.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's event, IMAX Digital Social Innovation Summit. I am Rajesh Sagi from Verisium Technologies. Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. I am Rajesh Sagi representing Verisium Technologies from IIITB. So here the talk we are going to do is drones and the urban emergency solutions in the context of I just like to just reiterate the focus, the way we are aligned to today's theme, resilience, security, and health. Two things I would like to focus from our company, what we are going to do. Disaster and emergency management, yes, this is what we are going to address from our work here. And the most important is the framework, what we need to follow to address the resilience aspects of the prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. Unless we address all the four aspects, we believe we are not really addressing the real resilience aspects of it. And the security, yes, the drones, what I'm talking about, talks about the security, safety in the event of a disaster management. And health, there is some aspects with reference to drones, but not very critical in this today's context. Just about a company briefing. We are from IIITB Incubation Center. I don't want to dwell too much here. And myself and Mr. Harsha Krishna and IITB alumni are the founders here. Yeah, the most important thing happened in pretty recently, that is on 30th October 2017, is the government of India has for the first time has unveiled a draft norm for the use of aerial vehicles. In the last few years, 3 to 4 years, the technology was ready. There are a lot of applications happening, usage of drones in the context of urban cities and disaster management. But in India, we are not able to do anything. With this draft policy, I would say the doors have just begun. So that is a good news for us. But there are a few things, they need to look at ensuring the safety of the other vehicles on the airspace and people on the ground. These are some challenges which we need to look at here. And somewhere else in the world, people are much, much ahead, some of the African countries and US. So the global environment is fully matured. In India, we are at to start doing the works. In terms of the applications, we know in general there are various applications, all of us know, the commercial photography, aerial mappings, and package dropping, a lot of things. And a lot of e-commerce companies are getting into this way, but I would like to talk the context of urban planning later. Yeah, from the Government of India classifications, we need to be very much aware. What are the classifications they need to give? The nanos, they talk about less than 250 grams in the classification, 250 grams to 2 kg is micro, 2 kg to 25 kg is mini, a small 25 to 150, and more than 150 is large. The most important from the government regulations are anything nano, it should not fly more than 50 feet high. It's most likely like a toy or fun or entertainment. Recreations, nothing serious as far as the city planning and urban issues are concerned, but the most important is 250 to 2 kg range, which needs a DGCA registrations. This is the guideline we need to be aware. We need to do anything over there. They give a UIN, unique identification number, the government gives. So there are a lot of regulations. I'm going to talk on this. The next is a mini, it needs a air defense clearance. So these are the regulations we need to follow, and the small and large. So this is the classification given by the Government of India regulations. And next 3-4 slides, I don't want to get into details. I just want to give a quick heads up. There are various types of drones by size. These are all different classifications are there. This is just for information. I don't want to dwell much here. There are again a classification by range. They are very close, and short ranges. So we need to have a clarity on the selection of a drones in the context of a urban applications. And the platform, as you might have heard many words, multi-rotor, fixed wing, and single rotor. These are the various types of drones are there. Every type of drone has got its own application based on where we are going to use these drones. But there are some advantages of multi-rotor and fixed wing and single rotor, because I don't want to get into more details now, but I would like the audience to be aware. So there are various types of drones, and there is something called the helicopter drones, quadcopters, and these are the two major classifications. But I won't talk about much of the classifications further. But based on the technologies, we have a GPS-based drones if you need to do a mission planning. Yes, this is where I want to dwell. If you want to have a more advanced solutions in the context of a smart cities, what we call for disaster management, we can have a mission planning, a predefined plans. These plans can be implemented using a GPS technologies. In this context, people use GPS-based drones and RTF ready to fly and alternative powered. There are some drones other than the electric motors what they use. They're all gas-based drones they use for a long endurance and other things. And this is just based on the task delivery drones and photography and tracing, which is just for information. I kept it here, but not very serious in the context of city planning. And coming to what solutions we are working at various teams is we use the simulations and analytics and skill development as the solutions from this company here. Because for using the drones, first we need to have skills required for doing the training, the pilots, all those things. And we use some of the simulation technologies for the pilot and operator trainings. And analytics sometimes goes as a part of the simulation solutions are over there. And other thing is the skill development. We have been talking to Aerospace Sector Skill Development Council of Government of India. So with reference to that, we are defining what are the skills required for a drone pilot trainings. Having defined those skills, we are developing a platform to address those skill development plans. And this is slightly our plan on the various levels of stakeholders who would like to do for academics, businesses and service. So we are still, work is going on in this area. So we are still yet to come out with the POCs, but we have clearly defined our direction for the company. So to wrap it up, what I say here is, for the government of India, what are the regulations, they have the challenges, what we have here is, these drones, they need registrations if you want to operate. After that, no, for every mission you take for the drones, you need to maintain a logbooks for all the drone operations. There are the regulations we need to know before operating the drones. And also there is a mandatory pilot training based on the certified courses. So this government has given certain regulations over there. So this is scope for the entrepreneurs. What I spoke here is just the beginning. This is not the just end of it. I see a lot of scope in the next 5 to 10 years to build so many applications to address various regulations using a combination of digital platforms followed by what I call human touch points. This is one step I see for the entrepreneurs moving down the line. So with this, I would like to conclude. The technology has opened the doors for a lot of entrepreneurs, and also in the context of a disaster management, we see a lot of application development can happen using the drones. See, many times what we do is we use simulation and analytics to simulate various disaster conditions, but that's only for the planning. But while execution, to minimize the response time, we need to do a lot of real-time applications. The drones can be used as a platform to deploy the solutions. So I may have a fantastic planning and simulation with me, but there's no guarantee when a really calamity happens, it won't turn into a disaster. So you need to have a fantastic execution plan. So the whole strategy of our company here is, what are the technologies are there, simulations, analytics, all great. Use drones as a platform to deploy these technologies in a real time, in a disaster environment, and minimize the what we call damage and all. So if you really ask me, 3 to 5 years down the line, once the government opens up with a lot of other opportunities in drones, I see a lot of innovation happening in this sector. The applications are going to be the killer because technology is there. Drones as a hardware, not a big technology hurdle. It is the applications, it is the innovations which happen, which we can use using drone and a platform in a real time where a human being cannot go in a disaster situation is a differentiator. I hope a lot of innovations happens here. Our company has got some plans to set up a center of excellence for drones in this campus to start developing such critical applications which will be deployed using on the drones. With this, I would like to conclude. Thank you so much. Any questions?
In the same folder. Okay, sir.
Hi, I'm Nitesh and I hack hardware. I graduated out of IIIT in 2013, but I stayed here for another year as an research assistant. And then that's when we made the 3D printer. So currently I co-founded Graviki with my friends, and at Graviki we hack science for the sake of environment where we breathe in. So before I tell you what we actually do, I would like to show you a photo of mine which I recently took. I call it my pollution selfie. So this is a photo of me cycling. So this is a result of cycling for for like 30 days in Bangalore traffic from Indiranagar to Chickpet sourcing components. So you can see the amount of soot we breathe in a month. So this got us worried, and according to WHO, there are 6 million people die annually because of pollution or diseases related to pollution like chronic respiratory diseases, heart attacks, and lung cancers. And if you look at the quality of air in Delhi, this is the map of Delhi yesterday night. So the particulate matter, this is PM 2.5. The maximum healthy limit is 50 micrograms per centimeter square. This is 3 times. So most of the places has the PM is 3 times the limit. And in winters it was 250 micrograms. So it was like 5 times the limit of the safe limit. And this was Bangalore last night. So Bangalore has just got like 5 stations. And you can see the Pina, it's 147, like 3 times the safe limit because of the industries, obviously. So if you see that Bangalore has just got 5 stations, but what about the air quality in Indiranagar or in Electronic City, which we don't know. So we decided to solve this issue by making a smart platform for like smartphones. It was an open source. I demoed it here in IIIT 2 years back. And it used to, so it was an open source which a plug-and-play sensor, so you can sense air pollution while roaming around with your cell phone. It used to communicate with like ultrasounds to your phone, so you can't hear it, but your phone can pick up. So, but we demonstrated it to our friends in Delhi. We sent them some of the devices, and they were like, "Okay, bro, this is so cool, but I actually know that the air is too bad. What can you do to solve the issue? I actually know that air is bad. That's not what I want to hear. I want to see what we can do ahead of just sensing." So we decided to so we thought like, okay, sensing is okay, but how can we actually solve the problem of pollution? So we decided doing some research on how people do it. So ever since the industrialization started, people are using these cars. These are called wet scrubbers. So they pass the flue gases through a stream of liquid falling, and they convert air pollution into water pollution, which also is acidic, so it's very harmful to dump it, and it's like, it costs a lot to just throw it away. Well, it causes land and soil pollution also. So we decided looking at other solutions. So we found another clever way of capturing pollution through what's called plasma, which is dielectric breakdown of air when there is a high voltage between 2 terminals, and which happens when there is lightning discharge. So this is the plasma which happens naturally, and you can actually use this same plasma to capture air pollution. So we started working on the device based on plasma capture. So this was our office used to look like at the end of day every day, and we started playing around with fires, and we were thrown out by the owner because he didn't like us breaking things in his office. So we rented a garage, started breaking our hands, and then we made our first prototype which looked like this. So we roam around Bangalore capturing pollution from a smoky car in like this form factor, which is funny. But then we made our first device for generators and carried it, like bootstrapped, so carried it on a cycle and deployed it in the real world. This was Powerika factory in Neelamangala. Powerika is the South India's major generator manufacturer with Cummins. So before I do anything further, I would like to show you the video of the device working. So this is a 15 kV generator on 70% load. This is the device which works on plasma. Right now it's off. I'll forward it. You can see this. I think it's not visible due to the projector, but you can see the smoke coming out there on the TV. So now the unit is on, so you see it's more than 95% capture. Actually it is 99.3, but we have to still verify it. We don't have a formal proof for it. But now the unit is off, and you can again see the smoke. So this is the smoke which I captured yesterday in the garage. This was for 1 hour of generator run. So this much smoke is generated from an average generator. Obviously it will vary with generator to generator. So you can see it afterwards. So after we capture this pollution, we take it further and process it into inks. So these are the markers which we make out of pollution. So this marker particularly has 40 minutes of pollution from a diesel car, and this marker is pollution worth 130 minutes. And so you can like quantize the amount of how much amount of pollution is generated, and then we also like make T-shirts printed with pollution. So we make like different kind of things: calligraphy ink, screen printing ink, markering. Now we are working on the smart board markers as well. So because people use more smart board markers than permanent markers. Then we did a campaign. We did Kickstarter, so we shipped to like 42 countries and with 800 orders. And we did a campaign in London, Berlin, New York. So you can see, I'll show you the photos. So the impact is, so we have till now captured 1.6 billion micrograms of particulate matter, which is converted into around 1,000 liters of air ink. And so traditionally how ink is generated, they burn this, there's something called furnace oil. So they burn it in controlled environment and then generate the actual soot, which is anyway burning outside in the diesel cars. So we have captured it and then doubled it. It's actually doubling the impact because we have prevented the burning of furnace oil in a sense. So these were the campaign which we did in Hong Kong and London, Berlin. This was New York. And so why inks? Because people relate to inks more than anything else. I mean, you can make carbon nanotubes out of diesel soot, but actually people would not relate it. And if you make inks, the more the people relate it, more will the pollution captured, and then more will the pollution will be like, we can prevent more pollution to go into the air. So I would like to end with a quote from Buckminster Fuller, who said that pollution is nothing but the resources which we don't capture, which we are not harvesting. Yeah, thank you. Yes, sir. I mean, we are launching a store on our website, gravity.com. We have already shipped to some 700 customers. But we got good response outside India because art is more appreciated out in India. Thank you.
get into the circularity.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, he set a ground on what circular economy is. So I'll just gonna take you through what a circular economy plays a big role in waste management and with example how it is affecting in Bangalore, like he said, and also as a startup how we are trying to play a role on it. So just to go through, a circular economy is just an alternative to take, make, consume and dispose mindset. Like we have this typical mindset over a period, like there is enough resources available which we're gonna mine and use it and just dispose it. So if you look back, like it took like thousands of years to have a 1 billion population, but today where we stand, there is a 7.5 billion population, and these do need a resource for keep it running. And as per the McKinsey report, they are telling that 3.2 trillion worth of this product which are like disposed are not really used to the efficiency. So it's really required that a mindset of a circular economy is very important in developing the products. And I'll just take you through how waste can play one of the role, because when I talk about circular economy, it's like in everything you do in a regular life or in every aspect. So I'll just touch upon like why it is playing such a big role, as a waste management can be one of the big role playing. So just to take you through, circular is not just a new terminology. It's been a while, since 1970. Initially, William McDonough, like one of the co-creator of Cradle to Cradle, initiated this idea, and over a period of time, lot has been done on that. But I think it really took a big leap when Ellen MacArthur Foundation in 2010 took a lead to actually set a policy, because that's what matters, because whatever you tell people don't do it until you set some real policies and things. So I think that's where the you can see the website on Ellen MacArthur Foundation is doing a great job on setting this circular economy. So I'll just take you through why it is needed, like you might be thinking. So overall, if you see, since the reserve, like we talk about the post-war depression, the Great Depression of 1930 World War, we are in a worse condition than what we have consumed. So if you see the turning point is 2000, what they say is the cost of the raw material, which has like literally leaped into the point where like the cost of making products have gone to that height, and if we don't think any further, by 2030 or 50 the cost may not be affordable to manufacture goods. So this is actually a McKinsey report of 2011 which talks about that. So one of the things William initially defined is like, I'm just taking, so this is one of the articles from Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So they actually define it into a biological and a technical waste. So what you call biological is like whatever we consume, and something like you come with this paper or something recyclable goes, like a minimal waste is put into the ground which goes into a biodegradable. And the technical waste, what they would say is that all of them, like a car, a computer, a chipset, everything we consume in day-to-day life should be actually recycled and given back to the system. So it's like a two system they are actually defining the things. But are we really thinking about it? So the typical question is that there was a big ban on plastic in China in Jan 2008. Like they officially banned the plastic, and if a country like such a big like China can ban, do you think where the plastic will end up? Like being a superior economy, US always is resilient to it, so India is in the threat. So do we have a policy? There was a talk last weekend in IAMB about the circular economy and policy, but are we thinking like suddenly Bangalore banned on plastic, and suddenly you see this paper cloth coming into the things and other alternatives? So are we solving the problem? Because I typically see, I work with waste management companies. So then we came up with these aluminum packets like Versa one. Then you see this cloth made with synthetic plastic. It's actually not a cloth. It's actually synthesized. So it's actually worse than what you are trying to do, because at least plastic and cloth can be recycled. Now you are giving the material into an environment which can't even be recycled. So actually the policy is just eye-washing the world about telling that we are banning this, we are banning that, but there is no design process. So there might be a requirement of policies US is working on, that when the product is actually developed, you set a thing that is it, how much % of it is recycled, how much it can be emit. And if you talk about again what need to be done, you can't define it on a top level like Tetra Pak can be a recycled or thing. So they are actually thinking about what material you should use in recycling, like so that what can be recycled. So very soon we might have products which coming, which will talk about the type of material to be used. So so this is what I'm talking about, design process. So how as a company we are trying to do, I'll quickly take you through. IoTrax is mostly a company working on emerging technology on AI, IoT and blockchain, and one of our focus area is smart cities and how we help waste management company. Like we are very much involved in helping solid waste management company add this value into the system. This was one of the projects we initially did for Bangalore in solid waste. So we can actually define what are the amount of waste generated, what is useful, how it is flown. So Bangalore generates around 500,000 tons of waste, which is almost 50% is reusable. Organic and other 30 to 40% is reusable. So we can play a very role in technology where it will add how much is collected from what area, what is the per capita, and it is already driven by a lot of smart city initiative. And this is some of the technology we built to sense the things, also the collect. I'll just show you one Belagavi project, just to typically see that they are actually working on a house-to-house waste collection where they know how much waste is collected from each house, how it is transported, and the money will be charged per amount of, because now it's a flat system, and Bangalore spends around 500 to 700 crores of money on this, and you still see the waste on the roads. So it's literally not working, and things are moving ahead, and it's somewhere technology plays a very important role, and we are trying to be there in understanding how we can add the technology, and also data analytics and things can add a big value. So on a closing remark, a circular economy is one that restorative and generative by design. So how we can actually add value to the system in different ways is what we are actually looking at it, and how the whole system we have to move, or else by 2050 the raw material will totally destroy and will not have any more production to be made in this world. And one of the challenges I think he discussed, air pollution and things. So circular economy can be lived in each and every product design, and there is a big role. I think in India itself, solid waste management is a $15 billion market, and circular economy, if you look big, it's a next people talk about blockchain or many more. I was in the conclave yesterday. So if you look back, there is a very big economy itself growing, and there is a lot of policy and a lot of design work can be looked into it. Thank you.
Almost run out of time, but we have about 5 minutes for question and answers. I think we've ended on a pretty good note. Restorative and regenerative are the keywords. And I think when you look at resilience, these two words have a lot of relevance. We'll probably have some time for questions, about 5 minutes. Any questions or any comments that you guys have, you might want to put certain rejoinders based on what the other panelists have spoken? Or yeah.
Yeah. My question to IoTrax. Okay. So you seem to have built systems which are kind of helping conventional waste management. But my understanding about
yes.
But where do you fit in terms of restorative regenerative economy? What are you doing to actually do that?
Okay. It was like, as you said, we are actually helping. We are like technology enablers to these solid waste and all these companies. So we actually help them that how much waste, what kind of is generated, how much is going to landfill and things. So this technology actually plays a role in that. Actually, I'm not directly involved because it's a bigger asset and managing side. So we are not an infra company, we are not an asset company, we are a technology enabler. I just took you through how a waste management company and technology can add value to the whole circular economy.
Don't you think it's counterintuitive? Because your business is in managing the waste. Okay. So, like, what will happen to you if circular economy makes you redundant?
Actually, the Vinesh Professor's point also, right? We are dependent on air pollution, and we want to reduce the pollution, but at the same time, you are dependent on that. So,
yeah, and I think that's where Shruti's the kind of work that she does in terms of gaming will become so important. In terms of having Nitesh and having him and having someone who is conventionally looking at solid waste management come together and see what is it that would work.
I would also think that you can't think of these entrepreneurial ventures as something fixed, right? I think it's much more dynamic than that. So tomorrow, if thankfully you go to a circular economy, I'm sure the organization will also evolve. I mean, it's assuming that this is all you do and forever. I hope none of us are in that boat. So I guess it's a question of that.
Yes. I have a question for solutioning individuals.
Yeah.
First of all, I have heard about you guys. Great work.
Thank you.
What I have seen, tell so much about what you guys have gone through, right?
Yeah.
If there was something this audience could do for you to spread the word, what are some things we could do for you to spread the word?
I mean, you can. It will.
Like the Facebook page.
No.
Other than that, how can we materially help you? Do more?
I mean, right now we are struggling to convince at least Indian people at least to be at least aware of air pollution. Currently, we have done campaigns. We have tried doing campaigns in India as well, but people just don't they don't appreciate the way we get the appreciation from the West. I don't know if it's a cultural issue that we don't care about issues in India, but at least what you can do is use public transport. I will say, we need pollution, but actually we don't want to create pollution. So it's good if you can just use public transport. Yeah, I mean, it will hurt us, but that's okay. I mean, we need pollution, but we don't want pollution out there.
Okay, so one last question. Yeah, you can probably take it over lunch. Yeah, one last question and then we'll wind up. Yeah.
Somewhere we need to come together to create a word. For example, any government, why people don't come together and
yeah, we try talking, but it's very, 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 very hard to talk to government. Yeah.
The companies who are making cars, they should use technology because how should it come out? So the emission file. So that is where whatever you can make can be created. So that's the solution. That's the kind of that's the kind of things that.
Can this be fitted into like a car that actually generates the pollution?
Well, at current stage, we are only focusing on stationary sources like gensets. But
for industries, it will work.
Yes, for industries. For example, there are new norms coming up for Euro 5 and 6 that, for example, diesel gensets are banned in Delhi till March. So there are stricter rules and regulations coming up for gensets. So it is a matter of interest for companies like Cummins also to look at this matter. And we are working with a big, I can't name the company, but we are working with a big industrial company on this matter.
So thank you. We have completely run out of time. Very interesting. Yes.
I request this audience here, since today's topic is on the disaster management, I'm just coming out with a out-of-box thinking. All the people here can think something like, from this institute, can you do something on the disaster management to create a collaborative platform? I'm not talking about entrepreneurs. I'm not talking about a citizen being a citizen of Bangalore. Do something back to the city. In any initiative like this, we need to have a strategic planning. Yes, as a group, we can form one e-group, think of our views on the strategic planning. Having done the planning and the executions, monitoring and control, these are the typical 4 phases. So this team can contribute. What are the technologies available? Today, once you go out of this room, we should not forget everything. What are those technologies? What are the tools? What are the procedures? What is the strategic way? At the end of the day, these people sitting in this room should be the voice of IIITB to the city of Bangalore to do a great job in the disaster management. A collection of people who can form some sort of a group and contribute towards this group. Maybe it's my request to the IIITB here.
Thank you. I think I leave the ideas to Ramesh to take it forward on how to get a group going, etc. And I'm sure people will not forget whatever has been covered here. You can discuss over lunch, tea, all that. Thank you very much for very interesting insights into the kind of work you're doing and how does it relate to resilience and managing disasters. Thank you, Ramesh, for this opportunity, and thank you, all the panelists. Let's give a round of applause. Thank you.
No, as a mark of appreciation, we just want
we need to give this.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, please. Yeah. We are using a calendar focusing on our research innovation activities on campus. So this calendar features some of the work that has been done with students and faculty members.
The
We'll take 5 minutes break and then start.
Okay. We would like to invite Professor Balaji Parthasarathy to give us the IMAX Summit keynote. Professor Balaji Parthasarathy, the Dean of Faculty and Professor at IIIT Bangalore, received his doctorate degree from University of California, Berkeley, master's degree from the University of South California, and bachelor's degree from IIT Kharagpur. His research interests include globalization, late industrialization, and regional economic development, technological change, and innovation policy. We would like you to join us today.
Yeah. Thank you, Ramesh, for the invitation to address this audience. It's actually a little embarrassing, if I might say, to speak to an audience like this. Really, it's about speaking to the converted, as they say, about social innovation. So I think most of you are sort of neck deep, if not deeper, in looking at this whole question of social innovation. And particularly coming from, there's more than a tinge of irony, I would suppose, when an academic who doesn't do any social innovation, in a manner of speaking, is speaking to people who actually have their hands dirty. But what we as academics do is to put these issues in a sort of a broader perspective, to think about why we are doing the things that we are, or people are doing, pursuing various sort of interesting problems and challenges. Why does it have to come at this particular juncture in history, right? When we've long had many of these challenges, whether it's pollution or a variety of other issues, right? And what is it that a place like India can offer, right? And finally, what is it that a university setting like IIITB has to offer? So this is sort of some of the issues that I'd like to actually discuss. Let me start out by saying that it's one of the great tragedies that we sit in Bangalore, a city that is at the epicenter of an industry in which we claim to be a world leader. We're the largest exporter of software services in the world, and a lot of which actually comes out of this city. The city which is the epicenter of our very sort of wonderful achievements in extraterrestrial space. We send missions to the moon and to Mars and so on. All of it comes out of ISRO, right? But the tragedy is that we also have more illiterate people in this country than all of Europe put together. Our infant mortality rates, maternal mortality rates, make sub-Saharan Africa seem nearly healthy, right? So it is in this context, right, that we find ourselves asking, what is it that we're getting wrong, that we can send rockets to outer space, but we can't make sure our babies are healthy or our children are educated? Right? Now, historically, if you go back at least over the last century, to look at how we've conceived and addressed these problems, the primary approaches, there have been two large sort of dominant approaches. One has been the use of government or the state to actually provide for many of these goods and services, whether it's healthcare, education, dealing with disasters, or for that matter, issues like pollution and so on that came up in the previous panel. The other, when quite often people were disenchanted with the state, like in India, because of a lack of capacity on the part of the state to actually address these issues, we turned to private enterprise, or what you might refer to in shorthand as the market, to actually address these problems, right? Unfortunately, a lot of what the market demands, the market has its own incapacities, right? In the sense that the market demands that you pay. And particularly in a context like India, affordability is a very significant challenge, right? So you have a vast segment of the population, therefore, then falling between the cracks, between incapacity of the state and the inability of a vast segment of the population that cannot afford private enterprise provided solutions, right? So that number, unfortunately, in a country of our size, is something like 500 million, right? Which is also why, right, rhetorical appeals to the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, like many of the business school folks talk about, is really fantasy. Because a lot of that actually hinges on questions of affordability, questions of generating appropriate social value, which is often elusive, right? And over the years, one thing has become very, very clear, and I'm talking about it after having just recently completed a book, which says that, you know, the fortune has been very, very elusive, to put it very mildly, okay? Now, why is it then that we're able to sort of, while these dominant institutions of the government and the market have solved many problems for us, why is it that it leaves behind a vast section of society, not just in our country, but the world over? One of the problems, or one of the sort of the characteristics of the problems that are not addressed by the state or the market is what are called wicked problems, right? And what do we mean by wicked problems? Wicked problems are those class of problems that are A, either hard to define, or B, once you define them, that goalpost keeps shifting, right? So what happens, therefore, is that you do not necessarily have a clear-cut, well-defined problem that you're then able to say, I'm going to get there in, say, 5 years, right? Here's the problem, right? So let me give you an example of that. So you say, we have a problem of saying, you know, we need to tackle the question of malaria, right? So you say, this is the kind of mosquito that we need to sort of target, and then you develop a set of drugs for that. But by the time you come out of those drugs, the mosquitoes in question have developed certain forms of resistance, right? There are mutations. The goalpost shifts. You still continue to have, you know, problems with malaria or tuberculosis or whatever that continue to afflict us. This is the nature of a wicked problem, right? You know, you might clearly have an end goal, but the sort of the mechanisms, the processes that have to be brought to play are far from clear, because it involves a combination of bringing into sort of play technologies and organizational mechanisms. It's not just technology. If it is just a technology solution, given the large number of technologies we have, not just in this country, but across the planet, right, it would have been a very easy game, right? And which is why, for example, the presentation on, say, pollution was very fascinating, because the invoking of art as an organizational means or an institutional means to actually address this problem is very, very fascinating, right? It's not traditionally something that's thought of either in the state or in the private sector. Usually, those are things left to the non-government organizations. Those guys who are tree huggers, do-gooders, right? And they're the guys who go do street plays and those kinds of things, right? So the thing is, you don't traditionally think of solutions within the private sector or the state to address these wicked problems. So what happens? You simply ignore them. Or you simply say, we are not able to do much about it. It is in this context that we've had the rise of social innovation as a particular sort of a approach. Now, why now? Why not, say, 50 years ago? Or why did we not wait until, say, 2050, 2070 to start to deal with these problems? I think it has to do with the fact that there's profound disenchantment at this stage in life, in our sort of historical evolution with both states and markets, right? We've realized we've messed up. We just don't have solutions, and the problems are coming home to sort of literally bite us. And there's another dimension to this, which is a lot of these problems were previously very local in nature. But increasingly, the problems are becoming international in scope. What are, global challenges? It's pollution is a classic case in point. I might pollute in India, but the after effects might be felt in Pakistan, it might be felt in Malaysia, it might be felt in the Middle East, as a consequence of global warming and climate change. Right? The avian flu very clearly showed how disease travels without respecting international boundaries. Right? So as the scope of the problems become increasingly global in nature, and they defy solutions that either markets or states can actually begin to provide, we start to look at alternatives. Thus, at this historical conjuncture, we start to talk about something that we refer to as social innovation, which is why people in the previous panel were saying we're going to other countries. So it's not just an India problem. It's global in its scale and scope. Now, what exactly do we mean by social innovation, right? In some senses, it's really flogging something that we already know. Because think about it, if you break down that term, innovation is something that we've long done, right? And by innovation, as is sort of a widely accepted definition, without getting into sort of the nitty-gritties, or sort of splitting hairs about it, is really the addressing the use and deployment, is addressing social challenges, or addressing challenges that we face in our workaday life, and bringing certain technological or organizational means to solve them. Then why is it that we actually append the term social in front of it? If this is innovation, is this sort of business as usual, then what are we referring to as social, right? Now, here, I think we need to sort of go back to the point that I was making earlier. We are tending now to use the term social, okay, largely because, A, our traditional approaches to innovation have failed, either through the state or the market. Next, we are now starting to look at other means. We're starting to take, for example, non-profit organizations and other sort of initiatives, right? For example, Fields of View was here. They're a non-profit entity. They're looking at these kinds of solutions and as sort of possible sort of approaches to the problems that we're facing. So in other words, the sources of sort of answers or solutions has become more encompassing. We're no longer reliant, say for instance, on the government, a bureaucracy, a public bureaucracy, or even a corporate bureaucracy, where you have large private labs sitting within sort of corporate entities to provide these kinds of solutions. What we increasingly need is this sort of ability to actually start to identify, we need to get better at identifying the problems, because part of the nature of wicked problems is that because the definition keeps shifting all the time, we need to actually have our ears as close to the ground as possible. The white coats in the corporate labs or the suited bureaucrats in government offices don't exactly have the kind of tacit knowledge that you often need in order to understand how the frontiers of the problem are actually shifting. You might have access to science, you might have access to bureaucratic resources, but that doesn't necessarily tell you anything about the nature of the problem you have to solve, and as long as that remains ill-defined, right, you lost the war. Right? So the nature of social innovation really is coming, comes about because we are talking about how we can marshal not just the traditional approaches to solving problems, but to sort of throw the net wider, as it were, and say, okay, let's bring in all that we know, all that we can understand, even the humble mom and pop NGO, who were often sort of disregarded. And the NGOs, for example, are also increasingly saying we no longer consider large companies, for instance, as evil profiteers. They've got certain technical capabilities, technological abilities that we can fall back on, rely on, to marry our understanding of problems, often very contextual, because what the nature of the problem in Kodagu is not what you face in, say, Kerala. Okay, so you're having to sort of take up a sort of a broad technological frontier and then sort of say, okay, we need to figure it out and figure out what happens locally. In other words, there are questions of design that are very critical here and central. Design that often in the past meant get something developed in Europe or North America or Japan, right? Remove a few features or wait for a certain degree of obsolescence and sell it in a relatively poor market like India. That's what design meant. But when you have to change the axiomatic foundations of how you start to pose questions, right, then you need to rely on alternate sources or expanded sources of knowledge before you can actually figure out what your solution should be. And that's what we're increasingly coming to call social innovation. Right? Now, I realize lunch is close at hand, and I don't want to hold you. I'll take a few more minutes and talk about what is it then that a place like India or a place like IIIT can do in this regard. Because there was this very passionate appeal by this gentleman on the previous panel, whom I see sitting about saying, let's do something as a community. Yes, surely. I think the first thing, one reason why we in India should be concerned is just the enormity of the problem. But also, let's face it, right? If we are going to take pride in saying we send people out to outer space, or we sell more software than any other country, surely you have the technical wherewithal that most countries lack, right, to be able to attend to these kinds of problems, which many countries have solved decades ago. Right? So how do you figure out the combination of organizational and technical means to deliver these solutions? Right? So we have a very fertile ground for experimentation. And given that we've messed up so far, a few failures will not hurt, honestly. Right? It's not going to hurt us. And then we keep, oftentimes talking about building a world-class industry or this or that. It is in finding solutions to these kinds of problems, not only finding solutions to the problems of other countries, that we really can aspire, right, to building world-class industry, world-class solutions to anything. Because that's when your competitive advantage comes from saying, I'm like nobody else, not from saying, I will do the same thing that you do. So I'm going to be able to answer problems and questions that nobody else is able to answer, although they're faced with similar challenges. That's where the whole question of how we create world-class industry or world-class whatever really starts. Right? And it is also here that I think academia has a very critical role to play, and which is, I'll be honest as an academic, say that, admit that we haven't done our role yet, played our role yet. Why? Because if we take a very self-critical view of what goes on within academia in this country, there's a few elite institutions that are trying to get published, less successfully or otherwise, in the best journals of the world, right? Which means addressing the problems that are of interest to those journals. I was with Harish Hande recently, who runs Celco, a good friend of mine, a fellow IITian from Kharagpur, and he was telling me, he was lamenting how IIT Kharagpur said, you haven't done anything for our institution. And I don't mind being self-critical here because I'm from the same institution. But he said, okay. Then he wrote saying, I have a problem with butter churners. When you churn buttermilk, he said, can you design a better butter churner? Because when I go to many rural parts of this country, I find that they don't work well. Clearly, many of the people that he wrote to turned their nose up at the problem. Right? And they said, what the hell are you talking about? He said, look, Don't think of this as a poor man's problem. This is a serious engineering problem. This is a serious engineering problem. If you're not able to think of it in terms of an engineering problem that your students can work on, then why is it that we are whining and complaining? Right? That, you know, there's not enough here. Do we only want to write for journals, okay, which will accept, you know, because there's notions of what prestige in academia is all about, that will accept problems that are accepted elsewhere, right? Do you want to really reinvent the wheel for many of those problems, many of those solutions? And then you have the vast majority of academic institutions in the country which are nothing more than teaching shops. And I say this not to look down on them, but that is the circumstance in which our bureaucrats have left them. They're poorly funded, the teachers are overburdened. There's a variety of other non-academic issues that dictate how they function. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. I don't want to go through all of that. And I think this is where institutions like IIITB, which are relatively new, right, have a very critical role to play. And I also think that's why we're all gathered in this room today, right? Because we need to find that intellectual space, that policy space, that entrepreneurial space, which allows us to say, look, this is how we can rethink problems, not by happenstance, not the way, you know, not by hoping that, say, you know, a problem will sort of just reveal itself to us, okay? Yes, we do need sort of empirical evidence, but then how do we actually back it up with robust research, reliable research, right, that provides us enduring solutions, right? So academics cannot really work on their own. We need sort of this input from, you know, the not-for-profit world, the world of the bureaucracies, the entrepreneurial world, the private enterprise world, and so on, right? We need all these inputs. And what we can do is to provide you, right, insights that come from our research. Essentially, we look to the outside world to pose new problems for us, to challenge us, whether it's in terms of, whether it's in the organizational dimension or whether it's in the technological dimension, right? Pose those problems.